you think that you love yourself, you think that you are taking care of you, especially in today's society where self-care and everything is the buzzwords, and you're doing the
Mhm.
things, you're doing the face masks and stuff, but you're not really loving yourself. You're not kind to yourself. You're not nurturing with yourself.
You're listening to Let's Talk Passion and Purpose with Nicole Thomas. Today's conversation is for anyone who's ever felt stuck, unloved, or out of alignment with their true self. My guest today is Krystal Glenn. Krystal is a media producer, storyteller, author, and award-winning teaching artist. Her work centers on helping people rewrite their stories and make their visions visible in their creativity, their faith, and their communities.
Community becomes the place in which you dwell. So you learn how to be in community with other people. You learn to share, you learn to love, you learn to contribute in community.
In this episode, we talk about how to spot the labels that are quietly limiting you, why self-care isn't the same as self-love, and how to tell the difference. What it really means when a creative project is on pause, on purpose, and how to create the movie of your life with intention. This is just a gentle, honest conversation that might hit home in ways you don't expect. Let's dive in. Krystal, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's dive right in. How did your creative journey begin, and what first drew you into the world of media and storytelling? And also, you're an author, writing.
Yeah, that is a journey all in itself, because I did not initially start with a passion for media. Unbeknownst to me now, when I was in middle school, I did take like a TV production class and I enjoyed it and everything like that. But when I went to pursue career, life after school, I went for accounting. And so it wasn't until after I graduated and I was attempting to find a career in the field of business administration that I came across podcasting. At the time, it was internet radio. And I was going to talk about my entrepreneurial endeavors as a bookkeeper with my business, Black Diamond Financials. And when I walked into the studio, they said, "Hey, this is something that you can do. You can do this internet radio thing." And it's like, immediately it was intriguing. It was like, wow. It was fun being interviewed and having the opportunity to share my story, and then getting the opportunity to do that was very exciting. So then that's when I learned about interviewing, media etiquette, film, radio, and that was in 2007. So
Wow.
that from there, that's kind of how it was sparked, and then from there, just everything kind of evolved. So I
Mhm.
think I'm a natural learner. So from internet radio to photography to videography to writing to being an author, all of it is just a creative expression for
Yeah,
me.
it sounds so. It
Mhm.
sounds so. And there's this synergy between all of them. There's this alignment, a
Absolutely.
creative thread. But during your evolution, when did you know? At what point did you say, "Okay, this is my purpose"? Because you just kept
Mhm.
evolving.
Mhm.
What was the source of just to keep expanding your knowledge, making this your passion and purpose?
Right. So when I realized at some point I was doing internet radio, I realized that everyone had a story, right? Everyone had a story, and I felt like it was part of my purpose to help share these stories, because it was like sharing is caring. And the more people who can hear these stories, either through the internet radio or through a picture or a film, they needed to see or hear these stories, because there was something valuable in the shared experience of living life, whatever it was. I talked to so many people, and it was like there was always this like common thread or something that you could take away that was relatable, and that only happened through sharing, and then it only happens to be able to share in mass when you put it on tape or put it on video. So that's when I
Mhm.
knew it was my passion. It was like I was adamant about having other people's stories shared, information shared in some form or fashion. And it just evolved from there because that's really what it's about for me.
I can tell through the work that I've seen online and the work that you're doing, the work that you're producing and sharing with the world, that is your passion and that's your purpose, that you're
Mhm,
elevating others and you're growing and evolving continually during the
mhm,
process.
mhm,
And the
mhm.
fact, I really love the idea of the shared experience because there's this universal theme. I think sometimes we feel that we're all alone, but when you
Yes.
hear someone else's story, you realize, okay, it's not just me.
That is it exactly. It's that I
Mhm.
am not alone, so if they can do it, then that means I can do it. I'm not like there's it's not just me. It's not woe is me. It
Mhm.
becomes a collective. It becomes shared experience.
What did it look like during that evolution for you, just moving through the different realms of internet radio to write? What was that journey like? If you could even put one word to label it, what would be that word?
It was if I had to put one word on it, I will say it was evolutionary for me. It kind of evolved with me. I would also say it was transcending for myself, the
Mhm,
the the journey of it, to becoming an author because it starts with me sharing other people's stories. And
mhm,
by the time I write my book, almost 10 plus years after having the idea of doing it, it goes from sharing other people's stories to now sharing my story.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, so it's the transit, the transformation that happens for me personally as a person and as a creative and evolving and
mhm,
sharing stories. I go from sharing other people's to being vulnerable enough to share mine.
yeah, yeah, that's
Mhm,
powerful. Sharing other people's stories and then being vulnerable to share your own, which now we
mhm,
can definitely discuss your book.
mhm, mhm,
Because it
mhm.
just leads right to it. Do the work, keep the faith.
And look, originally it was probably I think the book had several titles originally. It was
Mhm,
called Full Circle at some point. There were all these different titles about the book, for the book, and it always centered around my life experience in some way or some form of fashion. I thought it was going to be like your traditional autobiography, and I was going to tell my
mhm,
story. Um, and it evolved when I realized it was something that I heard, Iyanla Vanzant, who is someone that I've worked with and done a lot of work with. She said it's not about your story, it's how you tell your story, right? So we can tell it from a place of being stuck or telling from a place of healing, like that sharing part. Sharing is caring. So by the time I write this book now, Do the Work, Keep the Faith, I am almost a decade into life or having this being present to writing a book and then having to do it. And what I realized, it wasn't necessarily the events, specific events that happen in my life, but it's more of the lessons I learned and how to navigate through those lessons that I was supposed to share. So it became less about me, and more about how we as a collective, how we as people can get through some of the things in life and how it can grow into our authentic selves, whatever that looks like for you, because I know what that journey was for me. So it became like this teaching tool, not just my life story,
mhm,
which was great for me because who I didn't want to tell all my business anyway, but I still wanted to share. And so this was like the
mhm,
perfect way for me to do that. And so
mhm,
doing the work meant really being introspective, really looking at me, looking at my life, and looking at everything that I had been through, and then realizing and tapping into the to what was my saving grace, which was the fact that I had a relationship with God. I knew God. I understood and evolved in my relationship with God as to what my purpose was. And when I realized that the purpose was for me to grow as a
mhm.
person in humanity and then to contribute. And that's
Right.
really what a lot of our purpose is. It became clear that aligning with my authentic self is learning who I am and then learning how
Mhm.
I can contribute, how I can share. And so that's what the book became, and that's what it is. Doing the
Yeah.
work that is you, keeping the faith
Mhm.
in that relationship with God, higher power, universe, whatever it is that you label it, and really becoming the best human that you could be.
Yeah,
That's really what that
absolutely.
is about.
When you were writing the book, what
Hmm.
did you learn about yourself during the process as you were almost
Mm,
like an excavation, right? Of discovering
mhm.
self and also healing.
What did I learn about myself? What I learned about myself is that oh, this was deep. Okay. In writing the book, what I realized is that I was not, I had not gotten to a point of self-love that I needed for me. I had closed off my heart
Mm,
in the things that have happened to me. I had closed off my heart even to myself.
mm,
So yes, yes, that it was mind blowing. Okay. It was really
mhm,
mind blowing because it was like, oh my gosh, you think that you love yourself. You think that you are taking care of you, especially in today's society where self-care and everything is the buzzwords, and you're doing the
mhm,
things, you're doing the face masks and stuff, but you're not really loving yourself. You're not kind to yourself. You're not nurturing with yourself. You are beating up yourself for taking 10 years to write a book that you're trying
mhm,
to help people. And the one thing is that you are not kind to yourself. You are not loving to yourself. And so that was the one thing I learned. And it was that was the one part then that was able for me to release and let go and to
mhm.
get the book finished because that was part of the process. So it was how much I had closed off my own heart to myself in trying to, protect myself over the years.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's powerful. That's
Mhm.
powerful, Crystal. And I think so many people do struggle
Mhm.
with loving themselves. They think they love themselves. But when
Mhm.
you think about the boundaries that they don't set, right? All of those things,
Yeah.
the negative self-talk, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, you
The
say things to
labels,
yourself that you would have the right, the labels. That's right,
right?
the
The labels.
labels. Yeah, that's right.
Labels.
That's a big one.
That
That's a
is a
big
big
one.
one. That was the big one for me. It was the
Yeah,
labels. What am I
yeah.
calling myself?
Yeah.
It wasn't an author. It wasn't a
Hmm.
teacher. It wasn't
Yeah.
someone who got things done. And this is the journey I was on. It was very interesting.
Yes, yeah, I could only imagine. But
Yeah.
if someone's in the same situation that
Mhm.
maybe that you were in when you started the book, what advice would you give someone who is struggling with
Mhm.
labels and also
Mhm.
practicing real, authentic self-love?
Well, one of the things that I reflect on is, well, I have a saying that labels are limitations. So do identify what it is that you say to yourself. How are you limiting yourself? Um, a lot of us, like one of my labels was procrastination, you know. So it was
Mhm,
like it was counterproductive to author, because if you're procrastinating, you are not going to be an author because you're not going to get it done. So
mhm,
list your labels. What are you labeling yourself as? Like you really have to be mindful of what it is that we are saying to ourselves. And so that would be the advice. It's mindfulness. Okay, being intentional about paying attention to what you're saying and thinking and feeling, because those are the gauges for what is really happening with you. And we don't take the time to be present and aware of those things. And I know it sounds cliche and it sounds like an easy thing to do, but the awareness of how you're triggered in certain situations, okay, or how you're unable to push past certain things, like what is that there's an introspective work that has to be done, and that's what the work is. Like the work is you. That's what I say in the book. So
mhm,
if anybody who's struggling in that space, it's work. It's work that has
mhm,
to be done. It's not a band-aid. No one else can tell you this. These are things that you have to be aware of, and then you in turn have to be honest with yourself, and push through that. So
Mhm.
keeping the faith that there is something greater for you, about you. What do you truly believe about yourself, and how are you acting upon that belief? Because a lot of times our words and actions are misaligned, right? That's
Mhm.
aligning with the
That's so
other.
true. It
Right.
is.
So
They are.
that is really what the book is forcing you to do, or encouraging you to do, to really align those things that are easy to say. It's easy to do the saying part, but it's a difference to show up in the being of it, and because even doing can be easy, but
Mhm.
in the being, and that's where the transformation happens. That's when the alignment happens, is in the being. So if you can be present to your being, then you can, work through these things. And it's a lot. It's because it's distractions, and we live in
Oh, so true.
it's so many things. So, working through those distractions too, of really being present. Like, to get to you, I'm a mom, I do a lot of things. So to get to me, it's a
Mhm.
lot sometimes. By the time you get to you, you just want to do what it seems nice, which is a facial and go to sleep. But it
Mhm.
doesn't really address the things that you need in order to keep showing up every day, to make sure that your cup is full and that you're pouring from a place of fullness when you
Mhm.
are sharing and giving back to the community, because I think that that's important. That's something I really had to get to, a place of a
Mhm.
full cup.
A place of a full cup. Your motto, making visions visible, is
Mhm.
such a powerful statement. What does
Thank
that
you.
mean to you personally, and how does it show up in the way you create and lead?
Oh, so when I created Only Greatness Media Production, which is
Mhm.
where the slogan goes with, making visions visible was like, it was given to me. It was like God just gave me that. It was, and I was like, oh, that sounds good. Like, making visions visible. I help other people bring their vision to life. I said, so whether it's an entrepreneur who has a product or something that they want, or whether it is a social issue that I want to bring to life, I
Mhm.
use media to make these unseen vision, this unseen thought, this unseen passion that someone else has, visible for other people to see and to consume. And so that's what it started off as. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes. Hmm.
that's powerful. So that clarity.
The clarity, yeah,
Yeah.
it was the clarity, is the ability
Mhm.
to understand what somebody else had in their head, and
Mhm.
translate that into something that could be shared with other people. And
Mhm.
and and for a long time it was applied to other people. I was like, oh, making other people's visions visible. And recently it has been more turned inward to making my own visions visible, which is exciting.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
an exciting time for me personally, because I'm like, oh, 'cause I have things too that I want to do. And so now I get to make my own visions visible, and that's very exciting. Yeah.
So helping other people
Hmm.
give birth to their ideas, see it clearly first. What does that process look like? Helping a client get clarity.
For me, it's listening. I listen. I say, what is it that you want? What is it that you are? If I'm working with someone, working with a client, what is it that you envision? What are your ideas? And so I listen, and then I do what I heard you say was, or because what I heard you say is like, I'm seeing it at the same time. And so it helps them get clarity, because a lot of times when I'm working with people, they have very big ideas, and it's like, okay, well, how can we make that visible to other people?
As a creative professional, how has being a storyteller shaped the way you see the world and even
Mm,
the way you see yourself?
I'm very intentional about words. I'm very intentional about um, symbolism. in storytelling because I think those it's important. You use certain words. I want to invoke certain feelings. I want to create environments that foster growth and things of that sort. So when I do storytelling, even if it's something that may be sad, I always intend to create a learning in it, or if there'd be some type of lesson in the story, like a fable or something. So there's always something that the viewer or the reader can take away that's going to help them become better or leave them with something to think about. So in storytelling, I create the movie that I want to live. I'm more intentional about that now, and I use different techniques in my personal life with like scripting and things like that to help shape the story of my life moving forward. I know what the story has been. It's like you get
Hmm.
to be the author now of this story, and you know how it started and you know how you want it to end, and you can now be more creative in that. So using tools from my own personal life and how I use mindset and how I show up to tell the story of who I am and who I will be moving forward.
If someone wanted to create the movie for
Mhm.
their life, what is one tip you have for them?
If they wanted to create the movie of their life,
Or start, right? Begin.
what kind of movie do you want it? Do you want it to be a drama, a comedy, a romance? Like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And it becomes like the creative process. We lose some of this. Like we have like these superpowers. One of our superpowers is imagination, right? That's
Mhm.
what I say. And when we're young, when I have a 6-year-old. So when we're young, imagination runs wild. I would play with it.
Where do you draw your inspiration to get those
Mm.
messages for your work?
The inspiration for me comes from tapping into my intuition, like being able to know that I've always known the things that I needed to know. And when I trust myself, then I move in that. I move in that energy. I move in that truth or whatever it is. It's really learning to work within myself to
Mhm.
figure out what it is that I'm supposed to be sharing and giving to the world.
How important has community been in your creative success and sense of purpose?
Community is important to me. Community is the understanding that we are not alone. Like going back to the you are not alone. So when you understand that you are not alone, right?
Mhm.
Community becomes the place in which you dwell. So you learn how to be in community with other people. You learn to share, you learn to love, you learn to contribute in community. And one of the universal laws is that there's oneness, there is no separation. So when we understand that, when we understand that there is no separation and that we are in this together, literally, then we can operate differently within community.
You've been recognized as VFW Teacher of the Year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What does that recognition mean to you, especially in the context of the work you do to inspire the next generation?
It is again transformational. It's like, how do I tell my story? Because before getting that the recognition, I didn't even see myself as a teacher. I didn't see myself as a teacher, and I took a training for a program called Arts for Learning, where I became a teaching artist. But I didn't even see myself as a teacher. So when I was recognized as Teacher of the Year, it was the realization of how are you telling your story, Krystal? How do you see yourself, Krystal? And it so it was very humbling, but it was also a confirmation affirmation in the work that you're doing. It's like teaching is not just a traditional thing where you're in a classroom and you teach. There are things to teach outside of math and English and science. I teach accountability, I teach life skills, I teach creativity. So I am a teacher, and it's realizing, labels again, right? How was I
Mhm.
how was I so rewriting the narrative of what it means to be a teacher for Krystal.
Yeah.
So that's really what the recognition did, and realizing the value that I bring in community by teaching what I teach. Yeah.
Crystal, what's the best advice you've ever received about your craft or about pursuing your passion? You know, the kind that really stuck with you.
The best advice. Um, the best advice that I got was, it really wasn't, I don't think it was really advice. It was more like feedback. so,
Mm.
so it was more like feedback. It was and the feedback was, you march to the beat of your own drum. And I was like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I do. It was, and so that it was accepting that and stepping into that role. Like, you march to the beat of your own drum. You don't really, yeah, it was more like feedback. And I don't know if it was good feedback, but when I received it, it was, yeah, okay, that's true. That is who I am. I am someone who marches to the beat of her own drum, and any and everything that I do, even though it may have its traditional parameters, I
Mhm.
always will break those parameters and do something that is authentic to me.
For creatives listening who might be struggling to find their footing or
Mhm.
feel unclear about their purpose,
Mm.
what would you say to encourage them?
Mm. I would say for creatives who are feeling stuck, um, I would say give yourself some time. Give yourself some grace.
Mm.
Uh, you don't want to force creativity. Like, that's what I would say. Don't force creativity. And really, my creativity is sporadic. So just know that the rhythm of your creative process is yours, and so just learning to own it. Pay attention to your creative process
Mm.
and
Okay.
what that looks like for you, and be okay with the pace. Be
Mhm.
okay with your pace, because I'm somebody, oh my, then I have ideas all the time, and then they go into park, it's like
Mhm.
but I'm okay with my pace, and I realize a lot of times that I'm given ideas and I'm given these downloads and these great ideas, and then they're put on hold on purpose. They're put
Mm.
on hold on purpose.
Really?
So, everything that I'm working on now, my book, the document, I've been working for years, years. And I realize now that, as a creative, that they were put on pause on purpose.
Mhm.
For me, you know what I'm saying? However that may be, for me to develop them more, to get more intro, to give more information, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes the process is not to be ran through, and it is to take your time, give yourself some grace, and understand that sometimes it may be put on pause on
Put on
purpose.
pause.
On
On
purpose.
purpose. On purpose. But
Mhm.
Crystal, I'm going to ask you, how does someone know if a project is on pause or it's a no-go, abandoned ship?
Mm,
Because
that's a
sometimes we have to
good.
take a step back and say, no, no, we've got to pivot. How do you
Mm. So when I was writing my book, I attempted several times to begin to write the book.
Mhm.
And at one point, I said, okay, this is not it right now. I still have more life to live. It came to me. I don't know where it came from, but I never gave up. So it always came back. And so when I say, sometimes you don't know if it's on pause or if it's just a lost cause, right? To
Mhm.
be fair. Um, but I think the key in determining whether it's on pause or a lost cause is if it comes back and how it comes back.
Mhm. Tell me more. What does that
Um,
mean?
if the idea comes back to you with more, you start to see synchronicities. Okay, you start to hear things that are in alignment with the project that you had in mind, or you start to see things that give you inspiration or remind you of that project. it could be something that was been dormant for years because like
Mhm.
the documentary that I'm working on has been dormant for years. Um, and then just recently in the last 2 years, it has reemerged because there are outside things that have no clue about this dwelling, this creative dwelling within me that is
Mhm.
re-sparking it. So it's like this is not a foreign concept. This is just fuel for that fire. This is just log to put into that fire. Versus if it fizzles, if it doesn't come back, it's not for you. But
Mhm.
it's almost like the seed being planted, and the seed could be planted in you, especially when if you're doing like film or if you're writing books or projects that take a long time. Um, ideas that may seem too big because
Mhm.
because a lot of times it's those projects that seem massive and in unobtainable. Those are the
Mhm.
ones where when you start to get those little inklings, those little inspiration, those little nudges that say, "Hey, it's time to re-engage that idea." That's when you know it's time to re-engage, or it's
Mhm.
paused on purpose. But if
Mhm.
it fizzles, then it just fizzles, and that's okay. You have to be okay with that.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah,
had a lot of
absolutely.
ideas that just don't make any sense.
Looking ahead, what's next for you creatively? Are there any projects or dreams you're especially excited to bring to life? I heard the documentary come up a
Mhm.
few times. I also heard a whisper of another book. Tell
Yes.
us more.
I have lots of aspirations, but I'm really excited. Again, this is a time for me to make my visions visible. I've done it for so many people for a long time. And I have been fortunate to kind of be in a space to create for me and create the things that I want to create. And so, yeah, there's a documentary that I am in the process of filming and working on. It's called Dreams of a Vision. And this is really deals with the aspect of community, individuals in community. So, there's one of those synchronicities that happens. It's like, yep, you're right in alignment. I'm also working on another book, um, another fiction, and I'm also working on a fiction book. So I'm working on two books actually, two books.
Really? Wow.
Yes, 2 books, and it's so
Mhm.
funny because 'cause I'm really inspired and, you asked about that, and it's just like this fire burning in me now. It's like once I did one book, I said, "Well, I can write it. I know what it takes to write a book now," and
Mhm.
it's not as intimidating, and I don't feel, defeated. I feel like this is something I
Mhm.
can do, because 'cause I've done
Mhm.
it. I've proven it to myself. So, I have 2 books that I'm working on, and I have a series that I'm working on. That's it.
I'm excited for you and what's to come. Well,
Mhm.
thank you so much for being a guest on the show and for sharing your journey and your wisdom with our listeners. And I do hope you'll join us again.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you left feeling inspired and energized to follow your own path with purpose and creativity. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep living your purpose.